So on the bench today, we're very lucky to have a 6-string banjo belonging to the late great Phil Chevron from the Radiators in Space and the Pogues. And what we're going to be doing is a complete refurbishment on it. We got this 6-string banjo from Bren Lynott from the Trouble Pilgrims, who got it from Phil's sister. So what we're going to do is, as I said, complete refurbishment. So it's going to be stripped down completely, and there's a few issues with it. You can see we're missing a fret position marker there. The head itself is really badly worn. The joint there isn't great, and you can probably see that the string action is really high. That's to do with the neck angle not being great. So what we're going to do is completely strip the neck of its finish. We're going to refret it. We're going to redo the dot markers, give it a complete clean. We're going to put on a new head. We're probably going to have to get a new bridge for it as well. That one is very specific to this and isn't that great. Clean up all the hardware, and as you can see it's quite badly pitted in places, and just kind of bring it back to almost brand new and a much more playable condition. So we have no markings at all on the headstock. You can see what condition the neck is in, and we're missing dots here, and just how many stains and how badly worn that head is. Now, as far as I know from Bren, this was Phil brought this banjo on tour with him, so I'm sure a lot of the stains on this could tell us some great stories if they could. But as I said, and you can see a lot of the pitting here, we're going to completely refinish this and get her back to as much stellar condition as we can. You can see all the lovely kind of brown or orangey or even tiger kind of paraloid that makes up the back here, and you can see all the marks along the neck here. So this will all be completely stripped. You can just see how bad the action is there and how strange the neck joint is there. So we'll attempt to remedy all of that and try and get her back to as pristine a condition as we can. So I've just given the headstock a small clean with some guitar polish. You can see some of the dirt that's come off, and it's shown up just how nice this paraloid is. So hopefully when we do the rest of the body it turns out as nice. But and you can just see as I rub my finger along here, these little lines here, that's where the plastic is slowly shrinking over time. And with the strings off we can just see now the issues we have. And as I said, what we're going to do, these frets barely even exist. It's hard to tell, but they're just really small bumps. They're really worn, really flat, so they'll all be coming out, and we can completely strip down the fretboard then. We're going to place our dot marker and then refret it. This fret, this first one here, you can see just slightly larger than the others. That's called a 0 fret, so we'll be making sure to replace that with larger fret wire than the rest of them. And we'll be stripping off all this varnish or lacquer that's on the neck. Try and get rid of all this dirt as well, preserving these parts. That should be it for for the neck then. Okay, so we're about to start taking the frets out, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a soldering iron, and that's just to heat up the metal a bit, and that should expand the slot that the fret is in, and it should make it easy to get out. So that's our first fret out, and there seems to be a bit of glue residue on both the fret and the slot, so there must be a small bit of glue holding them in place. But we haven't lost any wood, so that's a good sign. It should make it easy then to put in the new frets. So that's all of our frets out, and it was not easy to capture on camera, but a lot of the frets just pretty much jumped out as soon as they received any heat at all. They were just about barely held in there. So now that they're completely out, what we're going to do is we'll redo our dot marker. Then we're going to completely clean and resand and maybe reflatten or re-radius the board, and then we'll get ready to put some new frets in. So our plan is to replace this dot marker that you can see is missing, but if you can kind of just make out on this one, we have some material missing in the upper corner there. We've got material missing here as well, and that's slightly misshapen, that one. So what we might do is we'll pull out all the dot markers and replace them completely, just to give a uniform look to it, instead of trying to just replace one and trying to colour match with these. These are just clay dots, so they're already starting to crumble. That's why we have gaps. So we'll just replace all 5 of them, and then we'll come back and clean the fretboard then. So these dot markers, they literally came out with no effort at all. There was no glue holding them in at all. It was literally just friction. So the slightest little touch with a blade and they jumped straight out. So what we're going to do is we're going to widen these holes a little. They're currently at 10mm. We're going to make it to about 12mm, and then put brand new dots in of 12mm size, and we'll glue them in properly. So now we'll just use this plug cutter and we'll cut out our dot markers with this. So now we have all our new frets sized up and ready to go in. We've got the neck ready to go, so we're just going to put a drop of glue into each of the slots and then just hammer the fret in, and then we get ready to level them off and crown them, etc. And just to quickly explain that the glue isn't actually to hold the fret in, it's just to fill in any small gaps that there might be underneath the fret that could cause movement later on. And now our last fret. So now with our frets all done and the rest of the neck stripped down, we're going to start to put our coats of oil on. So we're just taking a look at the head now, getting ready to take the head off the rim here, and we can already see some of the nuts here are already finger loose. You can see there's one not attached here, so what we're going to do is take them all off and get the head off and get ready to clean up the rim, take as many metal parts off as we can to clean them up and get ready to fit a new head. So that's our rim stripped down. We have our head here and the rest of the body and all our hardware, so we'll be completely cleaning up all this stuff. And now that we've taken it apart, we can see there's some pearloiding parts are starting to come away from the rest of the body that we'll be repairing. And that's, as I said, the original head, and I'm sure most of these stains have a story behind them. And we'll be replacing that with a new head and assembling everything back together. So as you can see, some of this pearloid material is starting to come away from the inside here, so we're just using some glue to get all that back together. So we're just going to begin to clean up the hardware. So we've got all our bolts and everything else that was holding the head and skin in place. There's just a bit of rust on them and some general grime and that. So what we're going to do is just fill up this container with some white vinegar, just to get everything submerged. And we'll leave that there for a few hours and it should clean up most of the surface, and then we'll come back and polish and buff them out. So our parts have been soaking for a good while now, and you probably can't make it out on camera, but the vinegar's gone very dirty and it's kind of like a scum floating on the surface. So it's cleaned them up a good bit by the looks of it. So we're going to take them out now. We'll neutralise the acid in the vinegar with just some water and baking soda and that kind of stuff, and we'll give everything a good clean and a final polish then. So we've neutralised the acid on them, and now we're just giving all the parts a good wipe. You can see a lot of the dirt is coming straight off them. They're already starting to look a lot shinier, and we're going to give them a, if you can, I don't know if the camera's picking up the comparison of the two, but we'll give them a good clean here, and then we'll break out some metal polish and that and try and get them as shiny as we can. So we're just going to do a quick test fitting of the new head we've gotten for it. It's a Remo Weather King. So just a quick assessment, and it seems to fit on okay. So yeah, it's a good fit. and that should be good when we put on the rest of the hardware back on. And it's a good job that that fits, because this doesn't fit, this doesn't fit, this doesn't fit, this doesn't fit, and this doesn't fit, because we're not perfectly round on this banjo, and the height is off quite a bit as well. So it took a few attempts and a few different skins, but we finally have one that fits. So we've got everything cleaned and polished to a certain degree, as much as we could. Some of the pieces had some chrome plating on them, but it was very cheap chrome plating, so even just trying to clean it up took most of the chrome off. So we've just cleaned up what we could, and what we're going to do now is try and assemble everything back together. Okay, so we're going to try and fit the head now. So that's the head on, and all the hardware tightened. So we're good to go, and we'll try and reattach the neck now and get ready to do our final assembly. Just a final extra little bit of tightening there, and that's our neck back in place, and it's solid as a rock. So what we'll do next is we'll reinstall our tuning heads, and we'll put a nut back in, and we'll get the bridge and strings ready to go on. So we're just screwing back in our machine heads here, and we've taken the decision that we're not going to use the original screws that came out. They were slot headed screws. They're very badly rusted, and even as I started to try and put one in, it started to crumble a bit, and the head started to shear a bit on it. So I said, rather than risk anything happening down the line, or if anybody else needs to take it apart for repairs in the future, I wouldn't risk leaving those screws in it. So we've just replaced them with regular modern machine head screws with a Phillips head, and they're going in perfectly. No need to do any drilling or extra holes or anything like that. So it's not exactly original, but it's a lot more functional than it was. So here you can see the old nut, and this is the new one we've just hand carved from a piece of bone. So we'll install that now. So now we're going to work out exactly where our bridge is going to go. So we just take a measurement from our nut. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we measure from our nut to our 12th fret, and we're just at 12.5 inches. So we double that, we then get 25 inches, which is going to be our scale length. So if we take from the end of our 12th fret here, double checking again, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and if we measure 12.5 from there, that puts the bridge roughly there. So what we'll do is we'll hold our bridge there, and we just take a pencil and we just make a little mark front and back. So we'll have an idea. Once we start putting the strings on, this is going to move all over the place. So now we know roughly where our bridge should be, and then once we get the strings on, we'll be able to maneuver this slightly backwards and forwards just to make sure it's in exactly the right place and that the instrument is completely in tune. So here we have the banjo finished now. We just briefly go through what we did. We cleaned up the headstock, we cleaned the tuners, we made a new nut, we completely refretted the neck, we put in new dot markers, we cleaned the fretboard, we oiled the fretboard and the neck, and we put a new head on. We cleaned up the hardware as best we could, we cleaned up the bridge as best we could, we cleaned up the tailpiece here. Generally just gave the instrument a good clean and kind of brought it back to life a bit, especially with the refret and that. As we saw, the original frets were completely worn. And the instrument is back working. Seems to sound not too bad. And it's now ready to be handed back over to Bren Lynott from the Trouble Pilgrims, who was nice enough to give this to me to refurbish it for him. It's been a great privilege to work on the instrument, so I hope Bren is happy with it, and as I said, it gives the instrument a new lease of life. You know, somebody should get some enjoyment playing this and remembering where it came from and who it once belonged to. And as I said, it's been a privilege to work on this, and I hope some of you found it interesting to watch the process.